Welcome, weary traveler. You've left behind the noise of the world and stepped into a realm untouched by time. Here, candlelight dances upon ancient stone walls, and the air carries the soft hum of forgotten lullabies beyond these gates. The night is gentle, and every story is a silver thread, weaving warmth around your heart. So, rest your mind. Let each word be a quiet step into the halls of dreams, until sleep, tender and deep, finds you. You are safe here, and slowly, the world drifts away. Chapter 1. The river of slowed hours. Night had folded itself around me like a cloak of quiet velvet. The world beyond my window was still, as though every leaf and star had agreed to rest for a while. I remember the faint shimmer of moonlight tracing the edges of the wooden floor, the soft hum of the wind pressing gently against the glass, the weight of silence settling in my chest like something tender and forgiving. It had been so long since I felt peace, not the kind that comes and goes like weather, but the kind that lingers, steady and deep. I didn't know where I was going when I closed my eyes that night, only that I wished to go somewhere beyond the ticking of clocks. The sound of time had become sharp to me, the rhythm of seconds cutting like small, invisible blades. I had spent years chasing hours, counting days, feeling them slip like sand through tired fingers. But when sleep began to pull me under, something changed. The ticking stopped. The air around me softened, and I felt myself sinking, not into darkness, but into a gentle light that shimmered like liquid moon. I opened my eyes, though perhaps they had never closed, and I found myself standing beside a river. Its surface moved slowly, so slowly that I could see my reflection shimmering between ripples that took minutes to form and dissolve. The water glowed with a silver hue, as if the moon had spilled itself into it. The air was fragrant with the scent of lavender and rain. The trees along the riverbank were tall and graceful, their leaves whispering secrets I couldn't yet understand. Each trunk leaned slightly toward the water, as though drawn by its slow rhythm. A soft mist curled along the ground, wrapping around my feet like a cat seeking warmth somewhere in the distance. I heard the faint chime of a bell, low, echoing. Far away, I began to walk. Each step felt unhurried, almost as if my body had forgotten what haste meant. The earth beneath me was cool and forgiving. I noticed the way the pebbles pressed gently against my soles, the way the air brushed along my skin. Every sensation unfolded at half its usual speed, not sluggish, but serene, as though time itself had learned to breathe deeply again. As I walked, I saw faint orbs of light floating among the trees. They weren't harsh like lanterns or stars, but soft and breathing like the glow of a sleeping heart. They drifted lazily, illuminating moss-covered stones and little white flowers that bloomed even in the night. A voice whispered from somewhere unseen, not words exactly, but something shaped like understanding. It was as though the forest itself exhaled meaning into the air. I stopped to listen, my breath quiet in the stillness. The river sang its low, liquid song beside me. Every now and then, a droplet would fall from a leaf and take a small eternity to reach the surface. When it did, it rippled outward in slow, concentric circles that shimmered for long, beautiful moments before fading. It was then I realized I was no longer bound by time, or perhaps time had decided to rest beside me. I stood at the edge of the river and reached out a hand toward the water. When my fingertips touched the surface, I felt warmth, not cold. It was like touching memory, soft, endless, and familiar. Images flickered beneath the water, moments from long ago, the kind that usually hurt when remembered. But here, they didn't ache. I saw myself as a child, chasing light through summer fields. I saw faces of those I had loved and lost, but they were smiling now, peaceful, unburdened. Every scene that once carried sorrow now glowed like a lantern seen through mist. Distant, gentle, beautiful, the river was healing time itself. I stayed there for a while, though a while meant nothing here. Maybe minutes, maybe years. It didn't matter. After some time, or no time at all, I noticed a figure standing across the river. They were cloaked in blue, the fabric of their robe rippling like water. Their face was calm, their presence soft. When they raised their hand, I felt the air around me hum faintly, like a bell about to ring. I didn't feel fear, only recognition. "Where am I?" I asked, though my voice came out like a thought wrapped in wind. The figure smiled, slow, patient. "You've come to the place between moments," they said. "The place where time comes to rest when it's tired." Their words seemed to echo through the air and the river and my chest all at once. I wanted to ask more, but the sound of the river filled the silence instead. "The river," they continued softly, "remembers everything. It carries the hours that have hurt you, slows them and washes them clean. You may walk beside it as long as you wish. When you're ready, it will show you where time finally stops hurting." I nodded slowly, because everything here moved slowly, and they lowered their hand. The mist thickened around the river, and when it cleared, they were gone. I found a stone at the water's edge and sat down. The stone was smooth and faintly warm, as though it had been waiting for someone to rest upon it. The sound of the river lulled me into a deep, breathing calm. Somewhere above, a star flickered bright, then dim, as if it too was breathing. I matched my breaths with its light, inhaling as it glowed, exhaling as it faded. For the first time in years, my body felt weightless. The memories that used to press against my chest seemed to loosen their hold. I leaned back against the grass and closed my eyes again, listening. The river spoke, not in words, but in rhythm. It told me stories of the hours that had gone missing, of forgotten dawns and forgiven nights. It hummed the melody of endings that didn't hurt anymore. Somewhere nearby, I heard the soft flutter of wings, perhaps an owl, perhaps a dream. I felt my heart slow, my breath deepen, my mind drifting into that strange, blissful state between waking and sleep. And before everything went completely quiet, I whispered to the night, "I think I'm ready to stay for a while." The mist curled closer, like an embrace. The moon sank low, painting the world in pale gold. And somewhere beyond the river's edge, the sound of 1,000 clocks faded into silence. Time, at last, began to rest. Chapter 2: The Garden of Forgotten Bells. When I opened my eyes again, the river had changed. The water still shimmered softly beneath the silver moon, but its song had deepened, slower, richer, more like a lullaby being hummed by the earth itself. Mist coiled above its surface in ribbons of pale light, and I found myself walking again, following its winding path as though led by something unseen yet kind. The night was endless here, not dark, not cold, just endless, like the inside of a dream that has no need to wake. My footsteps fell soundlessly upon the moss. The trees had grown taller, their branches arching high and interwoven, forming a vast ceiling of leaves that caught the moonlight in trembling fragments. There was no rush to reach anywhere. My heart had learned to move slowly now, to breathe between each step. After a while, or perhaps after an eternity, I began to hear a sound. Faint at first, like glass chimes swaying far away in a gentle wind. The closer I moved toward it, the clearer it became. Hundreds of tiny bells ringing softly in harmony, each tone delicate and pure, as if time itself had learned to sing. I followed the melody through an archway of vines heavy with white blossoms. Their petals glowed faintly, perfumed with something sweet and nostalgic, like the scent of childhood summers long gone. Beyond the arch, I entered a garden. It was vast, filled with gentle light. Moonflowers bloomed in every direction, their petals open wide to the silver sky. The air shimmered faintly, and woven between the blooms were bells, countless tiny ones, strung from thin threads of silver and crystal. They hung from trees, nestled among roses, hidden in the grass. When the wind stirred, or maybe when memory itself passed through, they chimed, soft and overlapping. 1,000 memories whispering in sound. At the center of the garden stood a great tree with white bark that glowed faintly from within. Its roots spread outward like rivers of light, and from every branch hung dozens of small glass bells. Some were clear, some tinted with faint colors, pale blue, soft gold, rosy pink. Each one hummed with its own quiet note, as though each held a single heartbeat from a forgotten hour. I walked closer, mesmerized. When I reached the base of the tree, I saw that the grass there shimmered like spun silver. The air smelled of rain and something older, maybe memory, maybe forgiveness. Then I noticed a small wooden bench nearby, carved with care and worn smooth by time. I sat upon it, feeling the faint warmth it held, as though someone had just left moments ago. A single bell, hanging low from one of the branches, caught my eye. Its glass was faintly frosted, and inside it flickered a small, golden light. I reached out and touched it gently. The bell gave a tiny, trembling sound, one soft note that seemed to echo inside my chest. And then, in that echo, I saw something, a fleeting image, a moment from my own past. It was a winter morning. I saw myself standing by a window, watching snow fall. Someone I loved had just left, not angrily, not dramatically, just quietly, the way seasons leave. That moment had always hurt. But here, as the image shimmered within the bell's glow, the ache softened. I could feel the memory melt into something tender, no longer sharp. The bell stopped ringing, and I realized tears were slipping down my cheeks, not of sorrow, but release. The voice from before, the one that had spoken at the river, returned, though I didn't see anyone. It came from everywhere and nowhere, carried on the gentle chime of the bells. "This is the garden of forgotten bells," it whispered. "Every sorrow you've carried left a sound behind. Every ache of time became a note in the wind. Here, they rest, and when you remember them gently, they sing. I closed my eyes and listened. The bells sang of all the hours I had once tried to forget, the farewells, the regrets, the long silences between words that never came. But here, they were no longer heavy. They sounded like forgiveness itself. Do they ever stop ringing? I asked softly. No, the voice murmured. They do not need to. Their sound keeps the past from vanishing completely. To forget would be to lose what once was beautiful, even if it hurt. The bells remember, so you do not have to. The thought filled me with a strange comfort. I looked around at the endless shimmer of glass and moonlight, at the petals glistening with dew that never quite fell. I rose from the bench and began to walk through the garden slowly, brushing my fingers across the bells as I passed. Each one sang a slightly different tone, some low and melancholy, others bright and warm. One bell near a rose bush whispered of laughter in candlelight. Another hummed of rain on rooftops and letters never sent. Another still sang the lullaby my mother used to hum when I was small, every note braided together, forming a music so soft and intricate that it could have only belonged to this place. I wandered until I reached the edge of the garden, where a small path led upward. A faint light glowed at its crest, golden, not silver like the moonlight here. It felt like dawn waiting to happen, though I knew dawn didn't exist in this realm. Still, something within me wanted to follow it. Before leaving, I turned back, toward the tree at the center. Its roots pulsed faintly with light, like a slow heartbeat. The bells swayed in a breeze I couldn't feel, their sound wrapping gently around me like a final blessing. And then, one last bell, smaller than the rest, rang behind me. I looked back and saw a new bell glimmering faintly among the branches. Its glass was clear, newly formed. Inside, a small light pulsed softly, golden and steady. I didn't need to ask whose memory it carried. It was mine, the moment I had just lived. The feeling of release, of letting the ache soften and turn to calm. The garden had taken it gently, the way the river had taken the hours before. I smiled faintly, whispering a thank you that the air carried away like smoke. Then I began walking up the path, where the golden light awaited as I ascended. The chime of bells faded into the distance, replaced by a new sound, the hush of leaves and something faintly musical, like strings being tuned by invisible hands. I walked on, slow and unhurried, the warmth of the bells still resting in my chest like a soft, glowing ember. The golden light ahead pulsed softly, as though breathing, waiting, and as I reached the top of the path, I heard the voice again, tender as ever. Beyond the garden lies the hall of echoing stars. There, the sky remembers what hearts forget. I paused, taking a breath that felt deep enough to hold an entire life inside it. The air shimmered faintly around me. Time, if it still existed here, sighed content, unhurried and kind. And I stepped forward into the golden glow. Chapter 3. The Hall of Echoing Stars. The golden light enveloped me, gently warm, weightless, soft as dawn filtered through silk. It wasn't like the light of the sun. It didn't burn or blind. It glowed with patience, like something ancient that had learned the language of rest. When it finally faded, I found myself standing at the entrance of a vast hall made entirely of glass and starlight. It rose high into the endless night, supported by slender pillars of shimmering silver. The air was cool and fragrant, filled with the quiet hum of something alive yet still. The floor beneath my feet was a mirror that reflected not me, but the sky above, infinite, breathing, filled with constellations that drifted and reformed like thoughts. Each star pulsed faintly, their light slow and rhythmic, as though they too were breathing. The hall had no walls, only the suggestion of boundaries shaped by the music of silence. Every sound here seemed stretched, thin, elongated, softened, suspended in air long enough for me to feel it on my skin before it faded away. I walked forward, my reflection gliding beneath me in perfect harmony. For the first time since entering this realm, I realized I could see my own light, a faint pale glow around my hands, like a candle burning beneath the skin. The stars above shifted gently as they moved. I noticed that their arrangement wasn't random. Each constellation seemed to take shape, dissolve, and reform into images that flickered faintly before fading again. A child holding a lantern, two figures embracing, a hand reaching upward. When I stopped walking, the stars stilled as if they were listening. A low hum rose through the floor, deep, resonant, like the vibration of 1,000 heartbeats. The stars began to echo, their light pulsing in time with the sound. It wasn't frightening. It was grounding, like feeling the world breathe with me. Then, from the space ahead, a figure appeared. They were not quite solid, formed of starlight and air, tall and graceful, their movements slow and fluid. Their face shimmered faintly, not fixed, as if made of memory and light. When they spoke, their voice was music, low, clear, and soothing, like a song half remembered from childhood. "Welcome," they said, and even that one word felt like a bomb. "You have walked through the river that cleanses the hours, and the garden that remembers them. Now you have come to the hall that listens. The hall that listens," I repeated, my voice small and distant in the vastness. "Yes," they whispered. "This is where every thought you never spoke, every feeling you swallowed, every wish you let drift away, comes to rest among the stars. They echo here, not to haunt, but to be heard." I looked around me, my gaze tracing the endless sky overhead. The stars were moving again, slower this time, gentle as drifting feathers. With each pulse of their light, I could almost hear faint whispers, fragments of laughter, sighs, words spoken in love or longing. "They remember?" I asked softly. "They do," the figure said. "Every unspoken word becomes light. Every silent ache becomes sound. When you stand here, the stars echo your truths back to you, gently, without judgment." The idea filled me with both wonder and hesitation. I wasn't sure I wanted to hear everything my heart had ever left unsaid. But the air here carried no fear, only peace. "Listen," the figure murmured. They lifted a hand, and the stars brightened. Slowly, their voices emerged, faint melodies woven from breath and memory. At first, I heard only fragments, a distant laugh, the hush of rain, the sound of pages turning. Then, beneath those soft noises, I began to hear myself, not my voice as it was now, but echoes of it through time. "I wish I could stay a little longer. I'm sorry, it's all right. Don't forget me." Each phrase came back like a wave, tender and weightless, until I realized they were not confessions, but fragments of love that had never found their way out. The stars shimmered brighter with each whisper, and the figure watched me with eyes that held entire constellations. "It's all right to listen," they said softly. "The echoes don't hurt here. They only remind you of what was once alive inside you." So I stood there and listened. Every sound in the hall became part of something larger, a symphony of human quietness. The breath of those who had once dreamed, the laughter of those who had once hoped, the sighs of those who had once loved too deeply. It all rose and fell like the tide, vast and gentle, endless and kind, as I listened. The light around me began to shift, the stars bending slightly, rearranging themselves. Slowly, they formed an image above me, a path made entirely of light, stretching upward into the night sky. I looked at the figure. "What is that?" "The way of remembered light," they said. "It leads to the place where the echoes find their rest." Should I follow it? When you are ready, I took a deep breath. The air tasted faintly of snow and sweet honey. I looked back once more at the hall. I could still hear the faint murmurs of memory, my own voice, my laughter, the soft hum of lives intertwined with mine. But it no longer made my heart ache. It simply felt whole. Before leaving, I turned to the figure once more. "Will the stars keep listening?" "Always," they replied. "Even when you can no longer hear them. Their echoes will light your way back whenever you forget who you are." Their words lingered in the air, slow and golden, until they became one with the rhythm of the hall. I stepped onto the path of light. The stars beneath my feet glowed brighter with each step, and the hall behind me began to fade, its music softening into the distance like a lullaby coming to an end. The higher I climbed, the quieter everything became, until the only sound left was my own breathing. Steady and slow, above me, the night opened wide. Below, the hall shimmered like a memory dissolving in water for a long time. I simply walked, weightless, drifting through the vast dark, surrounded by stars that pulsed in rhythm with my heart. And as I moved further, I realized that time, once again, had disappeared. There was no before, no after, only the now, stretched infinitely, glowing softly like the breath between waking and dreaming at the end of the path. I saw a faint silver door, suspended in nothingness. Its surface rippled like liquid moonlight. A gentle warmth filled the air around it, as if inviting me to rest once more. And somewhere behind me, like an echo of an echo, the voice spoke again, quieter now, as if from far away. "Beyond this door lies the valley of the sleeping hours. There, time lays down its head." The words faded like mist, and the stars around me flickered, waiting. I stood before the silver door, my reflection trembling faintly upon it, unsure whether it was asking to be opened or whether it was already open within me. The silence was complete. I took a breath, feeling the soft warmth of starlight wrap around my heart like a blanket, and then, with the gentlest touch, I stepped forward into the next dream. Chapter 4. The Valley of the Sleeping Hours. The silver door opened not with sound, but with breath. A slow exhale of light, a sigh of warmth. I stepped through, and the world changed once more. The air was thicker here, filled with the fragrance of rain-soaked earth, and something faintly sweet, like the scent of dreams long remembered. The ground beneath my feet felt soft, almost alive, as though made of woven moss and cloud. A pale mist drifted over everything, glowing faintly with the light of unseen stars. I had entered the valley of the sleeping hours, dot all around me. The landscape stretched in gentle folds. Rolling hills covered in silver grass that shimmered faintly each time the wind passed. The sky above was vast and low, filled with slow-moving ribbons of light that flowed like rivers in the heavens. They shifted through hues of pearl and lavender and dusk blue, painting the valley in colors too soft to name. The silence here wasn't empty, it was full of breathing, full of heartbeat, full of rest. Every sound that might have existed, the whisper of wind, the flutter of wings, the pulse of my own veins, seemed to blend into a single rhythm, deep and steady. The sound of the world sleeping. I walked forward slowly, my movements instinctively quieter, reverent. It felt wrong to disturb this peace, as though I had wandered into a sacred dream where time itself lay resting. And then I saw them. The hours, they lay scattered across the valley like seeds of light. Some were curled up in the grass, glowing softly like lanterns. Others floated just above the ground, spinning slowly in circles, faint trails of silver drifting behind them. They were small, no larger than a fist, yet their glow carried warmth that reached me from afar. Each hour had its own hue, some blue like twilight, some gold like morning, some pink like the first blush of dawn. I realized that every color was a moment once lived, every shade a memory now asleep. I knelt beside one that pulsed with a pale amber glow. As I leaned closer, I could hear a faint murmur coming from within it, like a whisper from another time. "Don't be late," it said, softly. "We'll meet at the bridge before sunset." The words melted into air, then faded, replaced by the gentle hum of sleep. Another hour beside it glimmered with a silvery blue light. From within, a low chuckle echoed mine from long ago. I could hear it so clearly, see the smile that had once accompanied it. I had forgotten that sound. The hour exhaled it back to me like a gift. The hours were dreaming. Every tick, every moment I had ever lived, all of them had come here to rest. A breeze drifted through the valley, making the glowing orbs sway gently. It sounded like the slow turning of pages in a book read by moonlight. I began to walk among them, careful not to disturb their slumber. The valley seemed endless, a sea of light stretching into soft horizons. I felt as though I was walking through my own life, scattered and sleeping peacefully at last. As I wandered deeper, the mist grew thicker and the colors brighter. A narrow stream wound its way through the valley, its surface glowing faintly as though it carried reflections of all the hours above it. The sound of it was soft, like breath against silk. I followed it until I reached a willow tree, ancient and vast, its branches long and low, brushing the glowing water. The air around it shimmered with quiet energy, and beneath its shade sat a figure cloaked in silver, their face hidden beneath a hood of light. They looked up as I approached, and though I could not see their eyes, I felt their gaze gentle knowing. "Timeless, you've come far," they said, their voice smooth and slow as honey poured through air. "You've walked through the river, the garden, and the hall. Do you know what this place is? I looked around the valley at the slumbering hours, at the stillness that hummed like peace. It feels like time's dream, I whispered. The figure smiled faintly. That's not far from truth. These are the hours you've lived. The ones that hurt, the ones that hurried past, the ones you forgot to hold. They come here when they're ready to rest. Do they ever wake again? I asked. Only when you remember them with kindness. They gestured toward the glowing stream. Sit, they said softly. The valley has something to show you. I obeyed, settling on the grass beside the water. The stream's light reflected onto my hands, painting them in soft gold. I could see faint images moving within the current faces. Laughter, passing seasons. They came and went, not as sharp memories, but as feelings, warm, fleeting, forgiving. The figure continued. Time is not cruel by nature. It only hurts when it's forced to move faster than the heart can follow. Here, in this valley, it learns to breathe again, just as you are learning now. Their words sank deep. I closed my eyes, listening to the low hum of the valley. I could feel the hours breathing all around me, slow, deep, rhythmic. My own breath fell into sync with theirs, until I could no longer tell which was mine and which was the world's. Somewhere far away, I heard a clock, a single, soft chime. Then another, lower, slower, each one fainter than the last, until they vanished completely. The silence that followed was complete, but not empty. It was the silence of everything being exactly as it should be. When I opened my eyes again, I saw that the figure was gone. Only their cloak remained, draped across the roots of the willow. It shimmered faintly, dissolving into the air like mist touched by dawn. I rose slowly, feeling lighter, not as though something had been taken from me, but as though something heavy had finally set itself down. The stream continued to flow beside me, the hours glowing softly in their sleep. I realized then that I could see my reflection in the water, but not as I was. I looked, stiller, calmer, my face illuminated with the same soft light as the valley itself. I knelt once more, dipped my hands into the stream, and felt warmth surge through my palms, not heat, but life. It spread through me like sunlight under skin, and I heard the faintest whisper rise from the water. You're almost there. The words filled me with both longing and peace. I looked out across the valley one last time. The glow, the mist, the stillness. I knew I would never forget this place, even if it faded like a dream upon waking. A path had appeared beyond the willow, paved with small stones that shimmered faintly with every color of the sleeping hours. It wound upward, toward a soft radiance that hovered at the horizon, warm and golden, like a sunrise waiting to happen. I took one last deep breath, the kind that fills the soul more than the lungs. The air tasted of memory and forgiveness, and with slow, steady steps, I began walking toward the light. Behind me, the valley remained still, a cradle of dreams, of resting time, of hours that no longer hurt. Ahead, something called softly, like a promise. Chapter 5. The Bridge Between Heartbeats, * The Path, wound upward through a haze of gold and silver mist. Each step I took made a faint sound, not quite a footfall, more like the hush of breath pressed into soft earth. The air shimmered gently around me, warm and luminous, carrying the scent of rain and honeyed air. As I climbed higher, I noticed that the ground beneath me had begun to dissolve. The moss and stones faded away until only light remained soft, translucent, shimmering beneath my feet like threads of woven moonlight. It was no longer a path, but a bridge, suspended over an ocean of air. The sky above was darker now, though filled with tiny sparks that pulsed like quiet hearts. Below, the valley of the sleeping hours glowed faintly, a blanket of dreams, stretching endlessly into the distance. I had stepped onto the bridge between heartbeats. It arched high, delicate and endless, its edges fading into the unknown. Each time I breathed, the bridge glowed a little brighter. Each exhale dimmed it again. It seemed to move with me, alive and aware, like it had been waiting at first. There was no sound but the rhythm of my own heart. Then, slowly, another sound joined it, a faint, steady echo, pulsing in perfect harmony. Not louder, not faster, just there, beside mine. 2 heartbeats, 1 body apart. I paused, listening. It was not frightening. It was familiar, achingly familiar. A voice rose softly within the stillness, not external, but not entirely my own. It spoke as though woven from memory and wind. Every heart carries an echo, it said. Yours has followed you all this way. I turned, and from the shimmering air behind me, a second figure began to form, faint and fluid, like reflection taking shape. At first, it was nothing more than light shaped like me. But slowly, details appeared, my own face, my own eyes, my own heartbeat pulsing faintly beneath translucent skin. It was me. Or rather, it was the part of me I had left behind long ago. We stood facing one another on the bridge, suspended in golden mist. My reflection smiled softly, and in that smile I saw exhaustion and kindness, the kind of tenderness that only comes after long hurt. You've come far, it whispered. Do you remember when you stopped listening to your heart? I wanted to speak, but words came slowly here. They had to travel through stillness, through centuries of silence. I think I forgot, I said at last. I kept moving, even when I was tired. I thought stopping would mean I'd fall apart. The reflection nodded, as if it already knew. You didn't fall apart. You simply grew quiet. And when the world stopped listening, your heartbeat came here to wait for you. They stepped closer until only an arm's length separated us. The air between us shimmered, trembling with light. This bridge exists only once in a lifetime, my reflection murmured. It appears when you've slowed enough to hear yourself again. I felt tears gathering behind my eyes, though they did not fall. They hovered there like dew, refracting light into tiny rainbows. Can I cross? I asked. You already are, they said gently. But before you reach the other side, you must remember how to listen. Their voice faded, and suddenly the bridge began to hum, a low vibration that seemed to move through my bones. My heart matched its rhythm. The hum deepened, rising and falling like the tide, and with each pulse, flashes of light appeared in the mist around us. I saw moments, not as sharp memories, but as sensations. The first time I laughed after a long silence. The way sunlight once touched my face through an open window. The sound of rain against a roof when I had nowhere to be. All of them small, ordinary heartbeats I had once overlooked. They gathered in the air like fireflies, circling me slowly, each pulse syncing with my own. My reflection reached out a hand. I did too. When our fingers touched, warmth surged between us. Not heat, not pain, but something softer. A merging dot in that moment, I could feel everything I had ever silenced. Joy, fear, love, loss, all humming together, no longer at war. I felt the heartbeat of my younger self, the heartbeat of every version of me that had tried to keep going, even when it hurt. And in that rhythm, I found forgiveness. The bridge beneath us flared with light, stretching out farther, brighter. The mist parted to reveal what lay ahead. A vast expanse of glowing air, shaped like a horizon but shimmering with the color of breath. A space that felt like the inside of a sigh. My reflection looked at me one last time, eyes soft, knowing. Go, it whispered. But remember, each time you breathe, you cross this bridge again. Every heartbeat is a return. Then, slowly, they dissolved into light, their glow streaming through my chest like a gentle river, until I felt them settle within me, quiet, steady, eternal. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of presence, full of life, full of peace, full of the sound of being. I stood there for a while, eyes closed, hand over my heart, feeling it move with the bridge beneath me. One rhythm, one breath, and when I finally opened my eyes, I found that the path ahead had changed again. The bridge now ended in a grand archway of white stone, carved with delicate lines that glowed faintly like veins of gold dot above it. Faint letters shimmered, words that seemed to form and fade too quickly to read, as though written in wind. Yet somehow I knew what they said. The chamber where time forgives itself. A warmth spread through me, not unlike gratitude. I took one last look back at the bridge, at the space where my echo had stood. The mist was still, the light gentle. The two heartbeats had become one. I inhaled slowly, letting the air fill me with quiet strength, and then exhaled, stepping toward the archway as I passed beneath it. The world grew softer again, melting into light and breath. I could feel the edges of the dream shifting, deepening, expanding, as though I had crossed not just a bridge, but a threshold inside my own soul. And somewhere behind me, the faint hum of the bridge continued, the steady rhythm of time, not as a chain, but as a song. Chapter 6. The chamber where time forgives itself. Stepped through the archway, and at once the air changed. It was neither warm nor cool, but perfectly balanced, the kind of air that feels like it remembers every season and carries them all in harmony. The mist that had lingered on the bridge now lifted into gentle ribbons of light, swirling softly around me before fading into the stillness ahead. The ground beneath my feet was made of pale marble, veined with threads of silver that pulsed faintly, like the echo of a quiet heartbeat. My footsteps left no sound, no mark, only a faint shimmer that disappeared as soon as I passed. The chamber itself was vast, circular, and filled with an almost sacred silence. The ceiling arched high above, vanishing into shadow, and from it hung 1,000 glimmers, not stars, not lanterns, but suspended drops of light, each one trembling gently, as if caught mid-fall. At the center of the chamber stood a pool, round and perfectly still. Its surface reflected everything, yet nothing, showing not my reflection, but a slow swirl of color, like dawn mixing with dusk. I felt it immediately. This was a place where time itself came to rest, not to die, but to breathe again. I walked closer. Each step brought the faintest ripple across the marble, as though the floor itself were exhaling. When I reached the edge of the pool, I knelt and looked down. The light in the water shifted, revealing faint images beneath its surface, moments, memories, fragments of life. But they did not rush or replay. They moved softly, drifting like petals on water. I saw myself as a child, laughing in sunlight. I saw nights spent waiting for something unnamed. I saw faces, some long gone, some forgotten, smiling, fading, returning again, but none of it hurt. Here, even the sharp edges of memory had become round and smooth. As I watched, the pool began to glow brighter. Its light rose like a mist, wrapping around me. Then I heard it, a voice, not from within or without, but all around, gentle, low, and ancient. "You've carried time in your bones," it said. "Now, let it rest." The air trembled as though the entire chamber had sighed. And for a moment I felt it. The weight of all the years I had carried without knowing. The waiting, the longing, the moments of trying to be enough. They pressed lightly against me, not painfully, but with recognition. It was like meeting every version of myself that had ever whispered, "Not yet." I closed my eyes. My hands rested on the marble floor, and I breathed in, out. The chamber seemed to breathe with me. Each inhale brought a gentle hum from the walls, a sound like wind over distant hills. Each exhale sent ripples across the pool, scattering tiny fragments of light. I stayed that way for what felt like both moments and eternities, breathing, remembering, releasing. At some point, I began to feel warmth beneath my palms. The marble was glowing faintly. When I opened my eyes again, words had appeared across its surface, faint inscriptions etched in gold. "Every moment you forgive becomes a star returned to the sky." The letters shimmered, then faded, leaving behind a faint trail of light that drifted into the pool. I realized then that the drops of light hanging from the ceiling were stars, forgiven seconds, released from sorrow. Each one was a moment someone, somewhere, had finally let go of. The chamber was full of them, tiny eternities of mercy. I dipped my fingers into the pool. The water felt neither wet nor cool, but alive. A warmth spread through my hand, traveling upward, filling my chest. My heartbeat slowed, but it didn't fade. It deepened, slow, steady, resonant, like the sound of waves on a distant shore. The voice spoke again, softer this time. "Time was never your enemy. It was only waiting to be loved." The words moved through me like a current, uncoiling knots I didn't know I'd kept. I saw all the hours I had fought against, the endless waiting for healing, the impatience with myself, the longing for what was already gone. Here, they no longer hurt. They simply were. Beautiful in their imperfection, sacred in their passing. I could feel something shift inside me, a loosening, a kind of inner quiet that spread like dawn through my chest. And then, something extraordinary happened. The pool began to rise. Its surface lifted gently into the air, becoming a floating sphere of shimmering light. Within it, the slow dance of colors deepened: indigo, gold, and rose, swirling like slow fire. I stood, and the sphere drifted closer until it hovered before me. I could see within it every version of myself: the child, the dreamer, the weary traveler, the quiet observer, all at peace. The voice spoke once more: touch it, and time will forgive itself within you. I reached out. My fingers brushed the sphere, and it dissolved, not into air, but into me. The light spread through my body, warm and weightless. Every breath shimmered with golden particles. Every heartbeat echoed like a lullaby. For a moment, there was nothing but silence, not empty, but whole. I felt as though I was suspended between breaths, held in the palm of something vast and kind. And then, from somewhere deep within, came the faint sound of bells, slow, resonant, fading gently into stillness. When I opened my eyes again, the chamber had changed. The pool was gone. The drops of light above were fewer now. Many had floated upward through unseen cracks in the ceiling, rising into whatever sky awaited beyond this place. But one remained. It hovered before me, trembling softly, golden and small. I cupped my hands around it, and it nestled there like a sleeping ember. Its light pulsed once, twice, syncing with my breath. Then I heard the whisper again, faint as a sigh against my ear: carry it with you. Where you go next, you will need its warmth. And with that, the chamber began to fade. The walls turned to mist, the marble melted into air, and the faint hum of forgiveness drifted outward, like ripples across a vast and endless lake, as everything dissolved around me. I felt no fear, no sense of loss, only peace. Time had forgiven itself, and I had forgiven time. The last thing I saw before the light consumed everything was the faintest glimpse of a new horizon forming a place between dusk and dawn, where soft hills rose and silver streams wound like threads through shadow and light. It was waiting for me, and as I stepped forward into the new glow, the single drop of light in my hands flared gently, guiding the way toward the next chapter of the dream. Chapter 7. The Garden of Forgotten Hours. When the mist lifted, I found myself standing at the edge of a vast garden, silent, glowing faintly in the light of an unseen dawn. It was unlike any garden I had ever known. The air shimmered, softly with suspended motes of light, drifting like slow snowflakes, and the scent of old rain lingered in the stillness. The kind of fragrance that feels like memory rather than weather. Everywhere I looked, the world seemed to breathe. The grass moved in a rhythm too slow to see. The trees tilted their branches as if listening to some faraway song. And the flowers, oh, the flowers, they glowed from within, their petals pulsing faintly with light. Each bloom seemed to hold a color that didn't quite belong to this world. Some shimmered like the first hour of morning. Others glowed with the hush of twilight. There were blues that tasted of sleep, silvers that smelled of moonlight, and soft golds that hummed quietly, as if remembering laughter. And in the center of it all, winding through the luminous meadow, ran a stream, clear and glass-like, reflecting not the sky above, but countless faces below. I realized then, each flower, each ripple, each glow was a forgotten hour, a moment lost to time, returned here to rest and bloom again. I began to walk. The earth beneath my feet was soft, cool with dew, and every step sent tiny ripples of light through the ground, spreading outward like whispers. I passed a cluster of pale lavender flowers that leaned toward me as I walked by. When I brushed my hand over them, I heard faint laughter, not from around me, but within the petals themselves. A sound like a memory unsealed. I saw flashes, a morning long ago, sunlight on a window, the faint hum of a kettle, someone humming an old tune. An hour I had forgotten, simple, small, peaceful. It bloomed again, right here in this garden. The more I walked, the more I felt time softening inside me. The golden ember I carried in my palms began to glow more brightly, responding to the air. With each breath, it pulsed gently, in rhythm with the flowers, the trees, even the stream. It was as though the whole garden shared one heartbeat. I knelt beside the water, gazing into its mirror-like surface. Beneath it, instead of pebbles or fish, I saw rippling moments, little vignettes of life. Some were mine, others I sensed belonged to people I'd never known but somehow loved. A child skipping stones across a lake, an old woman sitting beside a candle, mending a shawl, a pair of hands brushing dust from a forgotten book, an evening rain on a city street long ago, all of them drifting gently, beautifully, beneath the water's skin. The golden ember in my palms pulsed again, once, twice, and I felt it pulling gently, asking to be set free. I leaned forward and let it slip from my hands. It floated above the water for a moment, then drifted down and dissolved into the stream. A single golden ripple spread outward, gliding down its length, touching every reflection, every flower, every breath of wind. And then the entire garden exhaled. The trees swayed softly, the air brightened, the flowers lifted their glowing faces toward me, and their light deepened, richer, warmer, alive. The stream began to hum. The sound was like wind passing through hollow glass, melodic, ancient, impossibly soft, and in that hum, I heard something that made my chest ache with tenderness. Voices, hundreds, thousands, layered and distant, yet clear. They weren't speaking words. They were breathing, singing, whispering the rhythm of life itself. Every forgotten hour that had ever existed, every quiet cup of tea, every missed sunrise, every heartbeat that went unnoticed was singing. Not for sorrow, but for gratitude. Their light shimmered across the garden, and I understood then the forgotten hours had not been lost. They had only been waiting to be loved again. I stood silently, listening, my eyes stinging with tears that never quite fell. I had spent so much of life chasing time, trying to use it, catch it, outrun it, without ever realizing that it was never against me. Here, it was blooming. Time wasn't counting down, it was unfolding. A soft rustle behind me drew my attention. I turned and saw a figure standing among the glowing trees. They were cloaked in silver leaves, their face hidden beneath a hood of woven starlight. Yet their presence was gentle, the kind of calm that makes you want to sit beside them and listen without needing to speak. They walked toward me with slow, deliberate steps, their bare feet making no sound. When they stopped before me, they lifted their hand and touched the air between us. A ripple of golden dust drifted outward from their fingertips, forming a shape, a delicate hourglass made entirely of light. Inside it, instead of sand, tiny specks of color floated upward, defying gravity. When they spoke, their voice was soft and kind, neither male nor female, but something deeper. "You have returned what was kept," they said, "and because of that, time blooms again." I looked at the glowing hourglass, mesmerized. "What is this place?" I whispered. They smiled a slow, luminous smile that seemed to hold ages of gentleness. "It is the heart of stillness," they said, "where the hours that were unloved come to grow again. They wait here until someone remembers them kindly." I felt something inside me loosen that old ache, that quiet guilt for all the moments I had rushed through, the days I had forgotten to notice. The figure stepped closer and placed the glowing hourglass in my hands. It was weightless, pulsing faintly with warmth. "When you leave this place," they whispered, "you will still feel the rush of days. But if ever the world grows too fast again, hold this hourglass in your mind. Turn it over, and you will return to the pace of your own heart." I looked up, wanting to thank them, but they were already dissolving, their bodies scattering into silver dust that drifted upward. Joining the lights of the garden, the hum faded slowly, replaced by silence, the kind of silence that feels alive. I looked around one last time, at the glowing flowers, the stream, the breathing trees. I felt each forgotten hour brush gently against me as I passed, a whisper of gratitude, a promise to remember to move slowly, kindly, from now on. As I reached the far edge of the garden, the air thickened into mist once more. The light began to dim, though not with sadness, only with rest. Behind me, the garden continued to glow faintly, its heart steady and calm. Ahead, a faint archway shimmered in the distance, carved from crystal, bathed in the faint colors of dusk. Above it were etched new words, soft and almost hidden, "The Hall of Returning Light." And as I stepped forward into the mist, the hum of the garden followed, a lullaby carried on the breath of the forgotten hours, cradling me toward the next dream. Chapter 8. The Hall of Returning Light. The mist parted like a curtain, and I stepped through into a vast hall of light dot. At first, I thought it empty, a great expanse of pale stone and air that seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction. But then I noticed the glow. It wasn't coming from candles or torches, nor from the sky above, for there was no sky here. The light came from the walls themselves, vast sheets of crystal, faintly translucent, pulsing in rhythm with something unseen. It was like standing inside a heartbeat made of dawn. The floor beneath my feet shimmered faintly, smooth and cool, like moonstone polished by centuries of quiet. And though I made no sound as I walked, faint ripples of light followed my steps, soft echoes, as if the hall were greeting me gently, far ahead. I could see something gleaming, a long corridor leading to what looked like a throne of silver mist. But as I drew closer, I realized it wasn't a throne at all. It was a pool of light, suspended in air. Beneath it, faint patterns moved, waves of memory, of warmth, of sound. I could hear faint music, low and endless, like a choir singing far beyond the edge of time. The Hall of Returning Light. I knew it without being told. Every fiber of me seemed to remember this place, though I could not recall ever being here before. It was the place where light came home, where everything once broken by time was made whole again. As I approached the pool, the golden hourglass I had been given in the Garden of Forgotten Hours began to glow softly in my hand. The grains of color inside it, those tiny fragments of light that floated upward instead of falling, began to move faster, swirling in gentle patterns. The closer I came to the pool, the more the hourglass vibrated, as though it was longing to return. And then, a soft voice, not from within the hall, but from everywhere at once, spoke. Light remembers its way home. Will you help it find the path? The voice was neither male nor female, but endless, the same one that had spoken in the chamber of forgiveness. It was warm and slow, carrying the weight of eternity spoken in kindness. I nodded, not aloud, but inwardly, and raised the hourglass toward the floating pool. At once the air shimmered. The hourglass lifted from my palms, spinning gently in midair. Threads of light streamed from its edges, connecting to the pool above, like rivers joining an ocean. The floating grains of color began to rise, one by one, drifting upward in a soft spiral. Each one flickered, expanded, and became a memory, not mine, not anyone's alone, but the shared light of countless souls. I saw faces. I saw joy. I saw laughter caught in candlelight, tears falling into loving hands, embraces at doorways, quiet moments of forgiveness beneath stars. Each image bloomed, then dissolved into brightness. The entire hall pulsed with their glow, and I realized what was happening. This was where light returned to itself, where every kindness, every small mercy, every act of gentleness that ever existed came to rest. It was not heaven. It was not a dream. It was the heart of illumination itself. The voice spoke again. The hours you loved have led you here. But love is not meant to be kept. It is meant to be returned. Will you give yours back to the light? I hesitated, though not from fear. My hands felt suddenly empty, as though, in letting go, I would lose the small warmth that had carried me this far. But as I looked around, I saw that everything glowed with the same warmth. The walls, the floor, the distant horizon of crystal. It was the same light that had lived within me. So I closed my eyes, and I breathed with every inhale. I gathered the light of all I had seen, the bridge, the chamber, the garden. With every exhale, I released it. The moment I did, something incredible happened. The hall itself brightened. The pool flared with gold, then silver, then pale blue. The light expanded outward, touching everything, the walls, the ceiling, the endless floor beneath me. And where it touched, shapes began to appear. Statues formed from pure radiance. But they were not statues of gods or heroes. They were of people. Ordinary souls caught in ordinary moments. A child asleep in their mother's arms. A traveler watching the rain. An old man feeding birds by a window. Every image glowed faintly, frozen not in suffering, but in peace. The light was returning them, not as memories, but as blessings. I stood surrounded by them. And for a while, I could only weep, not from sorrow, but from the quiet relief that comes when you finally understand. Something too big for words. Time had never been meant to wound. It had only been waiting for love to see it clearly. The voice returned, softer now. A whisper of breath in the light. Every light that returns makes the world brighter for those who still walk in shadow. I felt warmth spread through my chest, up into my throat, into my eyes. It wasn't just light anymore, it was belonging. It was everything I had ever tried to reach, already here, already home. When I finally opened my eyes, I saw the pool beginning to fade. Its glow was dimming, not from loss, but from completion. The hourglass was gone, its essence now woven into the fabric of the hall. A soft wind, if it could be called that, moved through the space, carrying faint motes of gold that shimmered as they passed. Then I saw it. At the far end of the hall, another archway. It was smaller, humbler, carved from white stone, its edges worn smooth by ages of light. Through it, I could see a faint glow, not golden this time, but soft blue, like moonlight seen through water. I knew that was where I needed to go. I turned one last time to look back at the hall of returning light. It shimmered faintly, vast and endless, filled with quiet music, not from instruments, but from the light itself, humming softly in contentment. Then, with slow and steady breath, I began to walk toward the next threshold. The light followed me, trailing behind like threads of dawn, and as I crossed beneath the final arch, I heard one last whisper, carried gently on the air. Go where the moon dreams. There, the end begins to glow. Chapter 9. Where the moon dreams. The passage narrowed as I walked, its walls smooth and curved, shimmering faintly with pale blue light. There were no footsteps here, only the steady rhythm of breath. Mine and the world's, moving together. It was colder now, though not unfriendly, the kind of cold that makes the air feel clean. The kind that wakes something deep inside the heart. And then, slowly, the tunnel widened into a vast chamber. Above me stretched a sky made entirely of light. Not the day's kind, nor even the dusk's, but the kind that belongs only to the moon. Gentle, silver, slow. Clouds drifted across it in soft ribbons, as if they were breathing in rhythm with the stars themselves. Beneath that shimmering dome lay a lake of liquid light. Its surface rippled faintly, reflecting the sky so perfectly that I could not tell where one began and the other ended. The air smelled faintly of night-blooming flowers, lilies perhaps, or something older, something forgotten by gardens but remembered by dreams. The ground beneath my feet was cool and soft, like the edge of a riverbank made of silk dot, and in the center of the lake, rising from the glowing water, was an island. On it stood a single figure, cloaked in silver. They did not move, but as I watched, their reflection in the lake shifted, even while their body remained still. The reflection breathed, and that was when I understood. The figure was not watching me. The reflection was. Slowly, I stepped closer to the water's edge. The lake's light pulsed gently, and the figure's reflection turned its gaze fully toward me. I could see no face, only the outline of eyes that shimmered like moons caught within each other. For a moment, nothing happened. The world simply listened. Then the reflection spoke, its voice soft, slow, and resonant, as if made from the quiet between two heartbeats. You have come far, it said. Farther than time remembers. Do you know what this place is? I shook my head. My voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. No, but it feels like a dream I almost remember. The reflection nodded, and its surface rippled outward, sending waves of light across the lake. You stand where the moon rests when she grows weary of watching. Here, she dreams the dreams of the living, and through her, the world remembers how to hope. The moon's dreams. I looked around again, and for the first time noticed how the light shifted in slow, graceful patterns, forming images in the mist above the lake. A mother rocking a sleeping child. A wanderer lighting a lantern in the dark. An old woman closing her eyes beside an open window, smiling as she breathes the cool night air. Each image glowed for a few moments, then faded, leaving behind a faint shimmer, like a sigh dissolving into the stars. The reflection turned toward me once more. You have gathered the forgotten hours. You have forgiven the weight of your own shadow. Now, before the moon can dream again, she asks a question. The water grew still. The light dimmed until the reflection's eyes were the only brightness left. What do you dream for the world? For a long time, I couldn't answer. The question was too large, too soft, too ancient. My thoughts scattered like dust in moonlight. But then I felt the warmth of the places I'd been. The bridge of sighs, the chamber of forgiveness, the garden of forgotten hours. And slowly, my heart began to speak where words could not. I dream, I whispered, that time will become gentle again. The people will stop chasing what they've already become. That they'll sit by their own light and know it's enough. The reflection's eyes brightened, not with judgment, but with quiet approval. Then your dream belongs to the moon. As it spoke, the lake began to move. Waves of soft radiance gathered at the edges, curling inward, rising higher and higher, until the entire surface was lifting toward the island. The figure upon it, the one whose reflection had been speaking slowly, raised its head for the first time. I saw their face. It was not a person's face, but light shaped into form. And yet, in that light, I saw every face I had ever loved, every smile I had ever remembered, the moon dreamer. They reached their hand toward me, not across the water, but through it. The surface rippled once more, and I felt a pull. Gentle but irresistible. The lake was calling me. Without fear, I stepped forward. The light lapped around my ankles, cool and weightless. I took another step, and another, until I was standing waist-deep in the moon's dream. And then I felt it. Not cold, not heat, but understanding. The water was full of memories. Not of what had been, but of what could be. Each ripple was a promise. Each shimmer a breath of possibility. The moon dreamer's voice drifted through the silver air. Every dream changes the world, even those dreamt in silence. Dream softly and let the moon remember for you. As they spoke, the light around me began to lift, tiny motes rising into the air, swirling gently until they formed a slow spiral above the lake. Each mote pulsed with a heartbeat. I watched them rise higher and higher, merging with the sky until it was impossible to tell where my light ended and the stars began. And then, silence. A silence so deep it wasn't empty, but full. The kind of stillness that feels like a promise being kept. The reflection smiled. The dreamer closed their eyes. The lake dimmed, then shimmered once, twice, before becoming still as glass again. I stood there a while longer, breathing in the quiet silver air. I knew I could stay here forever, suspended between waking and dream, between all I had been and all I would become. But something gentle, like a whisper from far away, touched my heart, reminding me that even moonlight must someday give way to dawn. The moon dreamer opened their eyes one last time. "Go," they said softly. "It is almost morning." A soft wind rose across the lake, carrying a faint sound, bells distant and clear, as if calling me home. I turned, walking slowly back toward the shore. Each step I took shimmered faintly, and behind me, the moon's dream rippled once more, then faded, leaving only a soft reflection of starlight. As I stepped onto the shore, the tunnel ahead glowed faintly gold. The light of dawn was waiting. I took one last look at the dreaming lake, serene, endless, perfect, then walked forward into the brightness. Chapter 10. The Dawn That Waited for Youth. Tunnel of light opened slowly, not in a burst, not in brilliance, but like the gentle turning of a page. What met me beyond it was not quite the morning I remembered. It was softer, slower, as if dawn itself had learned to breathe in rhythm with sleep. The air was cool and smelled faintly of dew and wood smoke. Mist rose from the earth in thin curls, each one glowing faintly gold. I stood for a moment, not moving, only watching as the world began to wake, not hurried, not loud, but like a sigh that had been waiting to be released for centuries. There were trees here, tall, silver-barked, their leaves glistening like coins of light. Birds sang, though even their voices sounded unhurried, as though they were humming rather than calling. And at the edge of the clearing stood a cottage. It was small and simple, walls of pale stone, roof of moss, windows fogged with the breath of sleep. Smoke rose from the chimney in slow, spiraling ribbons. I didn't remember it, and yet it felt achingly familiar, as though I had been here before. Long ago, in a dream too peaceful to fully recall, I walked toward it, my feet brushing through the wet grass. Each step felt like a heartbeat returning to the earth. The door was slightly open, swaying softly with the wind. Inside, the light was warm, gold spilling across wooden floors, pooling around the corners where a cat might have slept. There was the smell of bread, faint but comforting, and the sound of a kettle murmuring on the hearth. And there, by the window, sat an old clock. Its hands were still, not broken, not stopped out of weariness, but resting, the way one rests when something difficult has finally been forgiven. I approached it slowly. Its face glowed faintly in the golden light, each number etched with care, each tick of memory folded softly within the silence. This, I realized, was the heart of the place, the moment where time had finally stopped hurting. And beside the clock, on a small wooden chair, lay a cloak, the same one I had worn when I began this journey. Only now it shimmered faintly, as if touched by every dream I had passed through. The golden sands, the silver bridges, the moonlit lake. As I touched it, I heard a voice soft behind me. "You've come home." I turned. It was the woman from the bridge, the keeper of the sighs. Her presence was as serene as before, her eyes deep pools of dusk and dawn together. She smiled, and the room seemed to breathe with her. "Is this home?" I asked quietly. "In every way that matters," she said. "Home is not where you began. It's where you can finally rest without waiting for something to end." Her words moved through me like sunlight through mist. I looked again at the clock. It isn't moving. She shook her head gently. No, because you no longer need it to, outside. The light grew brighter, but even that brightness felt calm, kind. I stepped closer to the window. Beyond it stretched the valley, vast and green, threaded with rivers of light. Every place I had walked through seemed to shimmer faintly on the horizon, as though the dream and the waking world had woven themselves together. The woman placed a hand on my shoulder. "You've carried time long enough," she said softly. "Let it rest now. Let it flow through you, not around you." For a moment, I closed my eyes. In the quiet, I could feel every place I had been. The endless corridor, the candlelit hall, the forgiving river, the moon's dream, all of it still alive inside me, each memory like a pulse of gentle warmth. When I opened my eyes again, the woman was gone. Only her presence remained, like the soft scent of rain after it has passed. I turned once more to the room. The kettle had gone silent. The bread was warm, the air sweet, and for the first time in what felt like lifetimes, I sat. I placed my hands on the table and simply breathed. No anticipation, no reflection, only the steady, living quiet of now. Time was not gone. It was simply still. Still enough to listen. Still enough to love. Still enough to let go. Through the open door, I could see the light spreading over the valley, touching the tips of the trees, the ripples of water, the edges of the hills. Every surface shimmered as though the dawn itself was remembering how to be gentle. A small bird landed on the windowsill, cocking its head, watching me with eyes bright as raindrops. It chirped once, a single, content note, and flew off again. I smiled, and then, slowly, I rose. I walked outside into the soft gold of morning. The grass was cool beneath my feet. The world hushed except for the quiet hum of life beginning again. Above, the sky was not merely blue, it was full, as though the night's dream still lingered within it. Somewhere in the distance, the moon was fading, not vanishing, but blending into the warmth of day, as if promising she'd return when the heart once more grew tired. I looked toward her, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw her reflection, the moon dreamer, watching, smiling faintly. Then dissolving into the light, the world was whole again. I breathed deeply, softly. The air tasted like renewal, and in that breath, I felt it. The stillness I had sought for so long. Not the absence of time, but the peace within it. The kind that does not measure life in moments, only in being. I looked down at my hands. The faint silver glow that had followed me through the journey pulsed once more, then settled into a quiet, steady warmth. There was nothing left to find, nothing left to chase, only this, the dawn, the air, the heart that no longer hurried. I sat once more on the grass, letting the light gather around me. Somewhere far beyond the horizon, a bell chimed, slow, deep, and final. Not as an ending, but as a lullaby. Its echoes folded through the valley, through my breath, through every memory I had ever held. And when the last chime faded, I closed my eyes. The warmth of sunlight touched my face. The hum of life surrounded me. And in that infinite stillness, time at last stopped hurting.